Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it. Then let's evaluate together. The rain pounded against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, a relentless drumbeat that matched the thumping in Lena Brooks's chest. She stood in the middle of James Jimmy Carter's study, her boots dripping puddles onto the hardwood floor, her hands trembling as she clutched a small brass key. The Upper East Side skyline loomed outside, a gray haze of steel and glass blurred by the storm. But inside this room, time felt frozen. Shelves lined with leather-bound journals stretched up one wall, each spine marked with a year in gold lettering. A letter sat on the desk, her name scrawled across it in Jimmy's elegant, slanted handwriting. Lena. She'd found it in a locked drawer the key had opened, along with a note that made her knees buckle. She sank into the leather chair behind the desk, its arms worn smooth from years of use, and unfolded the letter. "Lena," it began, "if you're reading this, something's happened to me. I hope it's nothing serious, but life's taught me to be ready for the worst. There are things I've never had the guts to tell you face to face. The journal's on the west wall. They'll explain most of it. Start with the one from the year we met. All I ask is you read with an open mind. Whatever you think of me after, know I've always respected your fire, your independence. Jimmy." Her breath hitched. Jimmy Carter, the quiet billionaire who'd hovered on the edges of her life for 7 years, was lying in a hospital bed downtown, tubes snaking out of him after a drunk driver smashed his car on the FDR Drive. She'd rushed to New York Presbyterian when Grace Kim, his assistant, called her, of all people, saying she was his emergency contact. Lena, a 34-year-old art curator who'd clawed her way up from nothing, who ran Black Canvas, a Harlem gallery amplifying black artists' voices. Why her? They were friendly, sure. Occasional lunches, emails about exhibitions. But emergency contact? That was family-level shit. She wiped rain from her face, her braids sticking to her cheeks, and reached for the journal marked 2018. The first entry was dated the night after the Brooklyn Museum Gala, 7 years back. She remembered that night, her first big art world event, nerves jangling, palms sweaty in a borrowed dress. But Jimmy's words hit her like a freight train. "I met Lena last night at the Brooklyn Museum. I'd tracked her career since that Chicago show she curated, raw, powerful stuff. But nothing prepared me for her. She wore this black dress that hugged her like it was painted on, and her eyes, damn, they burned like fire when she talked about Basquiat. I wanted to tell her I've been in love with her for months already, just from watching her rise. But I stood there like a dumbass, tongue-tied, gave her my card. She'll never call. Why would she? A guy like me doesn't get a woman like that. But I told my team today to keep an eye on her work, find ways to help her without her knowing. She's gonna change the art world. I know it." Lena's jaw dropped. She flipped a few pages, her heart racing as the entries piled up. Dates, places, moments she remembered him showing up at her shows. One from 2019. Saw her at that Bushwick exhibit. She was running the whole damn thing, cool as ice, while I hid in the corner like a creep. Bought a painting, $20K, some kid's work she'd found. Wired the money through a shell company so she wouldn't know it was me. She smiled at me once, and I swear I forgot how to breathe. She slammed the journal shut, her chest tight. This wasn't possible. Jimmy Carter, the guy with the soft voice and tailored suits, the one who'd nod at her across crowded galleries and ask about brushstrokes instead of bragging about his billions. He'd been in love with her? For 7 years? And not just pining. He'd been pulling strings, quietly building her empire from the shadows. She grabbed another journal, 2020, and flipped to a random page. Lena's gallery's rent spiked today. Landlord's a greedy bastard. Bought the building through a front. Took 3 calls and a favor from a buddy at Goldman. Dropped the rent 40%. She'll think it's luck. That's how it's gotta be. She can't know. Lena's eyes widened. Black canvas had nearly folded that year. COVID hit hard, collectors stopped buying. But then the landlord slashed her rent out of nowhere. She'd called it a miracle, toasted it with cheap wine in her tiny Bed-Stuy apartment. Now she knew the truth. Jimmy. The room spun. She stood pacing, the rain a roar outside. How much of her success, her pride, her grind, was his doing? She'd fought tooth and nail to make it as a black woman in a white-ass art world, to prove she didn't need a sugar daddy or a savior. And here was Jimmy, playing puppet master. But the journals didn't read like control. They read like worship. Another entry, 2022. She wore gold hoops tonight at the MoMA opening, laughed with some artist, and the light caught her like a goddamn painting. I made calls to get her show in the Times. She'll never know. Her success has to be hers, not mine. Lena's throat burned with tears she wouldn't let fall. She wasn't some damsel, he knew that. Every move he made was to lift her up, not tie her down. But 7 years? 7 years of this quiet, insane devotion, and she'd never had a clue? She dated other guys, assholes mostly, one who dumped her when her career outshone his fragile ego. Jimmy'd been there the whole time, a ghost in her orbit, loving her without a word. She sank back into the chair, rain streaking the windows like tears. The hospital loomed in her mind. Jimmy, broken and pale, machines beeping around him. Grace's call replayed. He's critical, Lena. You're the one he wanted us to call. Why hadn't he told her? Was he ashamed? Scared? Or, her stomach twisted, did he think she'd never love him back? She opened the 2018 journal again, needing to understand how it started. That gala night, she'd been a nervous wreck, 27 and out of her depth among Manhattan's elite. She'd stood by that Basquiat, lost in the chaos of color, when Jimmy appeared, tall, unassuming, no flashy watch or loud laugh like the other rich guys. "What do you see in it?" he'd asked, voice low, like he actually cared. She'd rambled about rebellion and pain, surprised he listened, really listened. He'd handed her his card, James Carter, Carter Investments, and said, "I'd like to hear more sometime." She tucked it in her purse, flattered but skeptical. Guys like that didn't chase girls like her for their brains. 3 weeks later, he'd shown up at her first solo gig in Bushwick, a gritty warehouse show, not billionaire territory. She'd spotted him in the corner, studying a painting like it held the world's secrets. "Jimmy, you lost?" she'd teased, walking over. He'd grinned, a small, warm thing that crinkled his eyes. "Nah, just here for the art. You've got a hell of an eye, Lena." They'd talk till midnight. Art, not money, not power. She'd liked him then, his quiet vibe, but love? Romance? Never crossed her mind. Now, sitting in his study, journals spilling his heart around her, she saw it all differently. Every nod, every purchase, every good job, Lena. It was him screaming, "I love you," without sound. She flipped to a 2023 entry. Saw her at the Harlem fundraiser. She outbid everyone for that kid's sculpture, fierce as hell in a red dress. Wired extra cash to her gallery's account last week so she could. She looked at me once, and I almost told her everything. But what's the point? She's built her world. I'm just the guy in the shadows. Lena pressed a hand to her mouth, a sob catching in her throat. This wasn't just sweet. It was goddamn heartbreaking. He'd loved her so hard he'd erased himself from the story. And now, he might die, and she'd never known. The rain slowed to a drizzle, the city's hum creeping back in. She grabbed her coat, stuffing the 2018 journal in her bag. She had to get back to the hospital, had to see him, even if he couldn't hear her. But first, she needed the whole story, every page, every secret. 7 years of her life reframed in ink and leather, and she wasn't letting it end like this. She locked the penthouse door, the key heavy in her pocket, and stepped into the wet night. Jimmy Carter wasn't just the rich guy who liked her art. He was the man who'd built her dreams brick by brick, silent as a ghost, and she'd be damned if she didn't figure out why. Hey, if this hit you in the gut like it did me, stick around, subscribe, and drop a comment. Ever wonder who's been watching you from the shadows, loving you without a word? Let's find out together. The rain had stopped by the time Lena Brooks stepped out of the cab in front of the Brooklyn Museum. But 7 years ago, it had been a clear, crisp fall night, perfect for a gala, terrible for her nerves. She'd been 27, a small-town girl from Ohio who'd somehow landed an assistant curator gig in New York, and that night was her first real taste of the art world's big leagues. Her black dress, borrowed from a friend, too tight in the hips, itched like hell, and her heels pinched her toes as she stood by a Jean-Michel Basquiat painting, pretending she belonged. The room buzzed with Manhattan's elite, gallery owners in tailored suits, artists with egos bigger than their canvases, collectors dripping in diamonds. She sipped lukewarm champagne, trying not to spill it on herself, when James Jimmy Carter appeared out of nowhere. He didn't swagger in like the other rich guys, didn't flash a Rolex or bark orders at a trailing assistant. He just stood there, hands in the pockets of a gray wool suit, staring at the Basquiat like it was a puzzle he needed to solve. Tall, maybe 6'2", with broad shoulders and a jawline that could have been carved from stone. But it was his eyes that got her. Hazel, soft, like he was seeing something nobody else did. She'd been lost in the painting's wild strokes when his voice cut through the hum of the crowd, low and steady. "What do you see in it?" Lena blinked, caught off guard. What?" she said, turning to him. Most guys at these things didn't talk to her unless they were hitting on her, or worse, trying to mansplain art she already knew inside out. "The brush strokes," he said, nodding at the canvas. "They tell a different story than the books, don't they?" She studied him for a second. Clean-shaven, a little gray at the temples, probably late 30s. Not a poser, she decided. "Yeah," she said, relaxing a bit. "It's rebellion, sure, but there's pain under it, like he's screaming through the paint." She paused, half expecting him to nod and walk off like most of them did, but Jimmy didn't. He tilted his head, eyes narrowing like he was really listening. "Screaming, huh? I see that. The chaos. It's not just noise. It's got weight." He glanced at her, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You've got a hell of a way of putting it." She laughed, surprised. "Thanks, I guess. You into art, or just here for the free booze?" "Little of both," he said, grin widening. "But mostly the art. I'm Jimmy, by the way. Carter." He pulled a card from his jacket, simple, white, just James Carter, Carter Investments in black ink, and handed it to her. "I'd like to hear more sometime, if you're up for it." Lena took it, her fingers brushing his. "Lena Brooks," she said, tucking the card in her clutch. "Maybe, if I don't get fired for spilling this on someone first." She held up her champagne, and he chuckled, a quiet, warm sound that made her feel less like a fish out of water. "Fingers crossed," he said, then stepped back into the crowd, swallowed by suits and glitter. She watched him go, thinking, nice guy. Weird for a rich dude. She didn't call him, though. In her world, men with business cards like that wanted arm candy or a quick fling, not her half-baked theories on dead artists. She figured that was the end of it. She was wrong. 3 weeks later, she stood in a drafty Bushwick warehouse, Her first solo gig as a curator. The place smelled like stale beer and spray paint, the kind of spot where hipsters and broke artists mingled over cheap wine and plastic cups. She'd poured everything into it, months scouting talent, begging loans from friends, framing pieces herself with a busted staple gun. The crowd was small but loud, buzzing around her picks, raw, unpolished works by black artists she'd found in basements and community centers. She was in the zone, explaining a sculpture to some guy with a man bun, when she caught a familiar figure in the corner. Jimmy Carter, in a navy button-down and slacks, no tie, no entourage, stood by a painting, hands clasped behind his back. The piece was a mess of blues and reds, a kid named Malik Jones's first real shot, and Jimmy was staring at it like it held the meaning of life. Lena excused herself, weaving through the crowd, her stomach doing a weird flip. "Jimmy, you lost?" she called, half teasing as she reached him. He turned, that same easy grin lighting up his face. "Nah, just here for the art. Thought I'd check out what you've been up to." He nodded at the painting. "This one's something else. You've got a hell of an eye, Lena." She crossed her arms, smirking. "You slumming it out here? This ain't exactly Park Avenue." "Maybe I like the vibe," he said, shrugging. "Or maybe I trust your taste. Who's the artist?" "Malik Jones," she said, pride creeping into her voice. 22, from the Bronx. Found him tagging a wall in Hunts Point. He's rough, but he's got soul." Jimmy nodded, stepping closer to the canvas. "Soul's right. The way he layers the color. It's like he's fighting something. You see that in him?" "Yeah," she said, surprised again by how he got it. He's pissed off at the world, but he's not just yelling. He's building something out of it. They stood there, shoulder to shoulder, staring at the painting like it was a conversation of its own. The crowd faded, the noise dimming, until it was just them and the art. She didn't notice how close he'd gotten until his sleeve brushed her arm, sending a jolt through her. She glanced at him, his jaw tight, eyes locked on the canvas, and for a second she wondered what he'd do if she leaned into him. But the moment passed, and he stepped back, clearing his throat. "Anyway," he said, "don't let me distract you. You're killing it tonight." "Thanks," she said, her voice softer than she meant. "Stick around if you want. We're here till they kick us out." He did. Hours later, after the last straggler stumbled out, they sat on a busted couch in the warehouse, empty wine cups between them. The air smelled like paint thinner and sweat, but Lena didn't care. She was high on the night, on pulling it off. Jimmy stretched out, one arm slung over the back of the couch, and asked, "How'd you find this place?" "It's a dump, but it works." "Dumb luck," she laughed, kicking off her sneakers. "Owner owed me a favor. Said I could have it for the night if I didn't trash it." "Smart move," he said, grinning. "You're scrappy. I like that." "Gotta be," she shot back. "Nobody hands you shit in this game. Especially not when you look like me." His grin faded, something serious flickering in his eyes. "Yeah, I bet. But you're making it anyway. That's no small thing." She shrugged, brushing it off, but his words stuck. They talked till 2 a.m., art, music, the way a good painting could punch you in the gut. Not once did he mention his money, his company, his life. Just art. She liked that, liked him, maybe more than she should have. Across the room, Malik Jones watched them, his jaw tight. He'd sold his painting, $20K, a number that made his head spin. But he didn't like how Lena smiled at this clean-cut white guy. "Who's the suit?" he muttered to a friend, cracking his knuckles. "She's supposed to be my shot." Outside, Victor Hayes leaned against his BMW, cigarette glowing in the dark. He'd swung by to scope out Lena's little show, smirking as he watched her laugh with Jimmy. "Little Miss Independent," he sneered to himself. Let's see how long that lasts. Lena didn't see them. Didn't know Jimmy'd wired that $20K through a fake name. Didn't know he'd gone home and written, "She was electric tonight, running that show like a queen. I'd give her the world if she'd let me. But she won't. She doesn't need me." She just waved him off as he left, thinking, cool guy. Hope he comes back. He would, again and again, and she'd never see what was coming. Lena Brooks leaned against the chipped counter of the Bushwick warehouse, the buzz of her first solo gig still humming in her veins. It was late, past midnight, and the crowd had thinned to a few stragglers nursing their last drops of wine in plastic cups. The air smelled like wet paint and spilled beer, a gritty perfume she'd come to love. Her sneakers stuck to the floor as she shifted her weight, watching Jimmy Carter shrug into his coat by the door. He'd stayed longer than she'd expected, sprawled on that ratty couch with her, talking about art like it was oxygen. "Night, Lena," he called, tossing her a wave. "Keep killing it." "Night, Jimmy," she shot back, grinning. "Don't get lost finding your limo." He laughed, that soft, easy sound she was starting to like too much, and disappeared into the Brooklyn dark. She didn't know he'd walk 3 blocks to his car, scribbling in his head the journal entry he'd write later. "She's got no idea what she does to me. That smile, fuck, it's a weapon. I'm in deep, and she doesn't even see it." She turned back to the room, catching Malik Jones glaring from the corner. His painting, a jagged swirl of blues and reds, leaned against the wall, sold for $20K to some mystery buyer. At 22, he was all sharp edges and attitude, a Bronx kid who'd rather punch a wall than talk about his feelings. "What's with the suit, Lena?" he asked, sauntering over, hands shoved in his hoodie pockets. "He your new sugar daddy or what?" Lena rolled her eyes, stacking cups to toss. "Chill, Malik. He's just some guy who likes art. Bought your piece, didn't he?" "Yeah, whatever," he muttered, kicking at a scuff on the floor. "Don't need no rich asshole pity-buying my shit." "It's not pity," she snapped, turning to face him. "It's your work. You earned that sale. Stop acting like a punk and take the win." He glared, jaw tight, but didn't argue. She saw the flicker of pride in his eyes, buried under the bravado. "Fine," he grumbled. "But I'm watching him. You too." "Watch all you want," she said, smirking. "Just keep painting." He stalked off, muttering under his breath, and she shook her head. Malik was a handful, but he had talent. Raw, messy, the kind she'd bet her career on. She didn't see Victor Hayes outside, flicking his cigarette butt into the gutter as he climbed into his BMW. He'd caught the tail end of her night, her laughing with Jimmy, her hustle paying off, and it pissed him off. Victor, 40 and slick as oil, ran a gallery in Chelsea, all white walls and overpriced abstracts. He'd been in the game longer, had the connections, the trust funds, the smug grin that said he owned the room. Lena was a threat, a black woman from nowhere, clawing her way up, stealing his spotlight. "Let's see how far you get, princess," he said to the empty car, engine purring as he peeled out. Days turned to weeks, then months. Lena's life was a blur of late nights and strong coffee, building black canvas from a dream into a real thing. She rented a crumbling storefront in Harlem, painted the walls herself, hung works by artists like Malik, kids with fire in their hands and no one to notice. Jimmy popped up now and then, unannounced, always alone. A small show in Bed-Stuy, a pop-up in the Bronx, he'd be there, quiet in the back, asking questions that made her think. "Why this one?" he'd say, nodding at a canvas. She'd ramble, about color, about struggle, and he'd listen, really listen, like her words were gold. One night, a year after the gala, they ended up at a dive bar in Flatiron after a show. The place smelled like fried onions and regret, neon buzzing over a sticky bar top. She nursed a gin and tonic, he sipped a whiskey neat, and they talked. God, did they talk. "You ever think about quitting?" he asked, spinning his glass on the bar. Every damn day, she laughed, leaning back. But then I'd just be pissed at myself. You? Sometimes, he said, eyes on the amber liquid. Money's nice, but it's not, I don't know, alive. Not like what you do. She tilted her head, studying him. What do you do, Jimmy? Investments, right? That's all I got from your card. He shrugged, a half-smile tugging his lips. Yeah. Move money around, make more of it. Boring as hell compared to this. He nodded at the flyer for her show, tucked under her elbow. You're building something real. Flatterer, she teased, but her chest warmed. He didn't push, didn't brag. Just sat there, steady as a rock. She liked that. Too much, maybe. She didn't know he'd gone home that night and written, "Drinks with Lena. She's sharp as a blade, cuts through the bullshit." I wanted to tell her I'd burn my whole damn empire down for her, but I just smiled like an idiot. She's got to keep shining. That's all that matters. Years rolled on. Black canvas grew. Small shows turned into packed openings. Critics started name-dropping her in art forum. Jimmy was a constant, a shadow she didn't mind. He'd buy pieces, big purchases, thousands at a time, always saying, "You've got the eye, Lena. I trust it." She'd catch him at galas, fundraisers, nodding across the room, and she'd feel something, a pull. But she shoved it down. Guys like him didn't fall for girls like her. Not for real. They married models, heiresses, not curators with chipped nail polish and a chip on their shoulder. Then 2020 hit. COVID slammed the art world like a truck. Galleries shuttered, sales tanked. Lena sat in her tiny Bed-Stuy apartment, staring at a stack of bills, her phone buzzing with cancellation after cancellation. Black canvas was bleeding cash, and the landlord hiked the rent. $5K a month, a gut punch she couldn't dodge. She was 2 days from calling it quits when the guy emailed out of nowhere. "Market's soft. Dropping your rent to $3K, don't argue." She'd stared at the screen, dumbfounded, then cracked a bottle of $2 Chuck to celebrate. Universe finally cut me a break, she'd told herself, laughing alone in the dark. She didn't know Jimmy'd bought the building that week. Didn't know he'd sat in his office barking into the phone. "Close it fast. Shell company, no traces. She can't know it's me." Didn't know he'd written, "Almost lost her today. That gallery's her soul. I'll bleed cash before I let it die." By 2023, Lena was a name. Youngest black woman to curate at MoMA, a spread in the Times. Black canvas, a Harlem institution. Every step felt like a fight won. Against the doubters, the gatekeepers, the world that saw her as less. Jimmy was there, always, a quiet cheerleader. At a fundraiser in Harlem that spring, she outbid everyone for a sculpture. A twisted bronze figure by a new kid, $15K she barely had. Jimmy watched from the back, sipping a beer, his journal entry later reading, "She fought for that piece like a lion. Wired extra to her account last week so she could." Red dress, commanding the room. "I almost broke tonight, almost told her. But she's hers, not mine." That night, their eyes met across the crowd. He raised his bottle in a silent toast, and she grinned back, her gold hoops catching the light. She didn't feel the rumor mill churn. Victor Hayes, lurking by the bar, whispering to a collector, "She's got a rich boyfriend footing the bill. Watch." Didn't hear Malik, sulking in the corner, mutter, "She's too good for me now, huh?" She just saw Jimmy, steady as ever, and thought, "He gets it. He gets me." Months later, a Monday in Flatiron, she cornered him at a coffee shop. Victor's rumors had hit her ears, her success tied to some mystery patron. She slammed her mug down, black coffee sloshing. "Jimmy, level with me. You hearing this crap about me?" He froze, mid-sip, his hazel eyes flickering. "What crap?" "People saying I've got a sugar daddy bankrolling me," she said, voice tight. "You know anything about that?" "No," he said, too quick, setting his cup down. "That's bullshit, Lena. You earned every inch of this." She stared, searching his face. He didn't blink, but something, guilt maybe, twitched in his jaw. "Okay," she said finally, leaning back. "Just checking." He exhaled, slow, and changed the subject. "Next show. What's the vibe?" She let it go, but the seed was planted. That night, alone in her apartment, she replayed every lucky break. The rent drop, the grants, the buyers who appeared like magic. Was it him? Nah, she told herself, tossing her phone aside. Couldn't be. She didn't know he'd driven home, hands white on the wheel, cursing himself. She's too smart. She'll figure it out. And then what? She'll hate me. The next week, a Thursday night show in Chelsea. Lena stood by a canvas, Malik's latest, all fury and light, when Jimmy slipped in, late. The room was packed, collectors circling like sharks. He lingered by her side, closer than usual, his sleeve brushing her bare arm. "This one's a knockout," he said, voice low, warm. "Yeah," she said, glancing at him. His cologne hit her, woodsy, faint, and her pulse kicked up. "Malik's on fire." "'Cause of you," he said, turning to her. Their eyes locked, the crowd fading, and for a second she thought he'd lean in. Her breath caught, heat creeping up her neck, but he pulled back, clearing his throat. "Sorry. Got lost in it." "It's okay," she mumbled, flustered. She didn't sleep that night, replaying it, his closeness, his retreat. What the hell was that? He wrote, "I fucked up tonight. Stood too close, felt her tense, wanted to kiss her right there in front of everyone. Walked away instead. She's untouchable, and I'm a coward." Outside, Victor smirked, watching them through the gallery window. "Gotcha," he whispered, lighting another cigarette. The game was on. Lena Brooks shoved her hands into the pockets of her denim jacket, the Harlem wind biting at her knuckles as she walked home from black canvas. It was late October 2023, and the city had that crisp, electric feel, leaves skittering across 125th Street, neon from the Apollo Theater glowing in the dusk. She'd just locked up after a packed opening. Malik Jones's new series, all jagged lines and neon splashes, had drawn a crowd that spilled onto the sidewalk. Critics were there, collectors too, and she'd worked the room like a pro, her voice steady, even as her legs ached in her boots. She was 34 now, a name in the game, and every win still felt like a middle finger to the world that had tried to box her out. Her phone buzzed. Another email from Jimmy Carter. "Great show tonight. Malik's killing it. You too. Jay." Short, simple, like always. She smiled, typing back. "Thanks. You should have stuck around. Malik's ego needed deflating." She hit send, picturing him in that penthouse of his, probably sipping whiskey in some fancy-ass chair. He'd been there earlier, quiet in the back, nodding at her across the room like he always did. Steady, reliable. She liked that about him, more than she'd admit. She didn't know he'd lingered outside after leaving, watching her through the gallery window as she laughed with a buyer. Didn't know he'd written in his journal. She was a goddamn force tonight, black leather jacket, hoops swinging when she talked. "I wired $50K to her account this morning, some grant she'll think she won. She outbid everyone for that neon piece. I'd give her the moon if I could, but she'd hate me for it." 2 days later, she sat in a Flatiron coffee shop, steam curling off her black coffee as she stared Jimmy down. Victor Hayes's rumors had wormed their way to her, Whispers at the Chelsea show that her success wasn't hers, that some rich guy was pulling strings. She'd brushed it off at first, but it kept nagging, a splinter under her skin. Jimmy sat across from her, his hazel eyes calm, his gray sweater rolled up to his elbows. "Jimmy," she said, voice sharp. "Level with me. You hearing this crap about me?" He set his mug down, ceramic clinking against the table. "What crap?" "People saying I've got a sugar daddy bankrolling me," she said, leaning forward. "You know anything about that?" His face didn't move, but his fingers tightened on the handle. "No," he said, quick and firm. "That's bullshit, Lena. You earned every inch of this." She searched his eyes, steady, unblinking, but there was a twitch in his jaw, a crack in the mask. "Okay," she said finally, sitting back. "Just checking." He exhaled, slow, like he'd dodged a bullet. "Next show, what's the vibe?" he asked, steering them away. She let it drop, sipping her coffee, but the doubt stuck. That night, alone in her Bed-Stuy apartment, she sprawled on her couch, a glass of cheap red in hand, replaying every lucky break, the rent drop in 2020, the anonymous grants, the buyers who materialized when she needed them most. Was it him? She shook her head, muttering, "Nah, girl, you're paranoid." But the seed was planted, and it wouldn't shake loose. A week later, her phone rang while she wrestled with a canvas frame in the gallery. She wiped paint-smeared hands on her jeans and grabbed it. Unknown number. "Lena Brooks," she answered, balancing the phone on her shoulder. "Ms. Brooks, this is Grace Kim," a crisp voice said. "Jimmy Carter's assistant. There's been an accident." Her stomach dropped. "What? Is he—" "He's alive," Grace cut in. "But critical. Car crash on the FDR Drive. Drunk driver. He's at New York Presbyterian. You're his emergency contact." Lena froze, the canvas slipping from her hands to clatter on the floor. "Me? Why the hell am I—" "He was specific," Grace said, her tone clipped but strained. "After family, it's you. He's in surgery now. Thought you'd want to know." "Yeah," Lena rasped, throat dry. "Yeah, I'm coming." She hung up, staring at the phone like it had burned her. Emergency contact? They were friends, colleagues maybe. But this? Her mind raced as she grabbed her coat, the gallery a blur around her. Jimmy, with his quiet nods and steady presence, hurt, or worse. She hadn't realized how much he'd carved out a space in her life until the thought of losing him hollowed her out. The hospital was chaos, beeping machines, antiseptic sting in the air, nurses barking orders. She found the private waiting room, her boots squeaking on the linoleum. 2 people sat there, an older black woman with silver hair and a stern white guy in a suit. She recognized the woman from photos, Ruth Carter, Jimmy's mom. The guy had to be a lawyer or something. They looked up, eyes pinning her like she was an intruder. "You must be Lena," Ruth said, voice soft but firm, a southern lilt threading through it. "He talks about you all the time." Lena blinked, thrown. Yeah, Lena Brooks. How's he?" "Out of surgery," Ruth said, folding her hands. "Broken ribs, internal bleeding, head trauma. He's not awake yet. They don't know when or if he will be." Lena's chest tightened. "Shit," she whispered, sinking into a chair. I mean, why me? Emergency contact?" Ruth's eyes softened, but she didn't answer. The suit guy, definitely a lawyer, cleared his throat. "Ms. Brooks, I'm Daniel Pierce, Mr. Carter's attorney. He left instructions." He handed her a small brass key, cool against her palm. This opens his study at his residence, Upper East Side. He was adamant you get it immediately if anything happened. Lena stared at the key, her pulse thudding. "What's in there?" "He didn't say," Pierce replied, adjusting his tie. "Just that you should have access. There's a car waiting when you're ready." She looked at Ruth, who nodded gently. "Go," she said. "You'll understand more when you do. And maybe—" She paused, choosing her words. "Maybe you'll see my boy different after." Lena didn't argue. She needed answers. About the rumors, the key, the man she thought she knew. The ride uptown was a blur, rain starting to slap the windshield as the driver pulled up to a sleek tower overlooking Central Park. A doorman waved her in, and a housekeeper, short, graying, no nonsense, led her to the penthouse. The place screamed money. White marble floors, art on every wall, a view that could have been a postcard. She recognized pieces. Malik's early work, a sculpture from her MoMA show, paintings she'd hung herself. Her breath caught. How much had he bought? The study was different. Warm, lived in, books stacked haphazardly, a worn leather chair by the desk. Journals lined one wall, years glinting in gold. 2018, 2019, 2020. She slid the key into the desk drawer, heart pounding as it clicked open. Inside, a letter, her name in Jimmy's handwriting. She unfolded it, rain drumming the windows, and read, "Lena, if you're here, something's gone wrong. I hope it's minor, but I've learned to plan for the worst. I've never had the balls to tell you the truth. The journals on the west wall, they've got most of it. Start with 2018. Read with an open mind. I've always respected your fire, your fight. Jimmy." She grabbed the 2018 journal, hands shaking, and flipped to the first entry. Brooklyn Museum, the gala. "Met Lena last night. Tracked her from that Chicago show. Brilliant, raw. But she's more. Black dress, eyes like flames. I've been in love with her since I saw her work, but I just stood there dumb as hell. Gave her my card. She won't call. Told my team to watch her, help her quiet like. She's gonna change everything." Lena's knees buckled. She sank into the chair, flipping pages. 2019. Bushwick show. She ran it like a queen. Bought Malik's painting. $20K. Shell company. She smiled at me, and I forgot my own name. And 2020. Rent spiked at her gallery. Bought the building. Dropped it 40%. She'll think it's luck. Can't let her lose that place. 2023. Harlem tonight. Red dress. Fierce as hell. Wired $50K so she could win that bid. Almost told her. I'm a coward. Tears pricked her eyes. 7 years. 7 fucking years of this. Love, devotion, whatever you called it, poured into these pages, and she'd never seen it. He'd built her world, brick by silent brick, and kept his hands clean so she'd never suspect. The rent, the grants, the buyers. It was him every time. Not control, worship. She stood pacing, rain a roar outside. Anger flared. How dare he? Then gratitude. Then something heavier, unnamed. She'd dated guys, burned through flings, while he watched, silent, aching. Why? Why not tell her? She grabbed her coat, the 2018 journal shoved in her bag. Hospital, now. She needed to see him, needed answers, even if he couldn't give them. The housekeeper stopped her at the door. "Miss, it's pouring. Take the car." Lena nodded, numb, and stepped into the elevator. The key burned in her pocket. The journals a weight she couldn't shake. Jimmy Carter wasn't just her quiet friend. He was the ghost who'd loved her into everything she'd become. and she'd be damned if she let him slip away without a fight. Lena Brooks gripped the edge of the hospital chair, its cracked vinyl creaking under her weight as the antiseptic stink of New York Presbyterian burned her nose. The private waiting room was too quiet. Only the hum of machines down the hall and the soft tap of rain against the window broke the silence. Her braids stuck to her neck, still damp from the dash through the storm, and her boots left muddy streaks on the linoleum. She'd made it back from Jimmy Carter's penthouse in record time, the journal's weight dragging at her bag and her mind. 7 years of his words, his love, his secrets, spun in her head like a tornado she couldn't outrun. Across from her, Ruth Carter sat ramrod straight, hands folded in her lap, silver hair catching the fluorescent light. She looked every bit the Southern matriarch, elegant, unshakable, even with her son fighting for his life 2 doors down. Beside her, Daniel Pierce, the lawyer, tapped away on his phone, his suit crisp despite the late hour. They'd barely spoken since Lena burst in, breathless, clutching the brass key like a lifeline. Ruth's eyes flicked to her now, sharp but warm. "You went," she said, not a question. "Yeah," Lena rasped, throat raw. "Read the letter. The journals. She trailed off, shaking her head. "I don't get it. Why me?" Ruth's lips pressed into a thin line, like she was weighing how much to say. James, Jimmy, he's always been private about what matters most. Even as a boy, he'd pour his heart into those little notebooks, never tell a soul. Guess you mattered more than most. Lena's chest tightened. "He talks about me? To you?" "More than you'd think," Ruth said, a faint smile tugging her mouth. "Your gallery, your artists, how you fight for what's right. He'd come home from those shows of yours, sit in my kitchen with a coffee and just talk. 'Mama, she's gonna change the game,' he'd say, proud as hell, like he'd raised you himself." Lena stared, floored. She'd seen Jimmy as a friend, maybe more, if she was honest. But this? "I didn't know," she whispered. "I thought he just liked the art." "He does," Ruth said, leaning forward. "But it's you he's been watching, always has." Before Lena could process that, the door swung open, and a surgeon in blue scrubs stepped in, mask dangling around his neck. His face was tired, lined, but steady. "Mrs. Carter," he said, nodding to Ruth. "Ms. Brooks, he's out of surgery, stabilized for now. Broken ribs, punctured lung, head trauma. Severe, but we've stopped the bleeding. He's not awake. Might not be for a while." Ruth exhaled, a shaky breath she'd been holding. "Can we see him?" "Soon," the surgeon said. "He's in ICU. 1 at a time when he's settled." He glanced at Lena, then back to Ruth. "He's a fighter. That's something." Lena nodded, numb, as he left. A fighter. Yeah, that was Jimmy. Quiet, stubborn, always there when she didn't even know she needed him. She pulled the 2018 journal from her bag, flipping it open again, needing to anchor herself. Met Lena last night, Brooklyn Museum. She's more than her work. Fire in her eyes, voice like she's daring the world to fuck with her. I've been in love with her since Chicago, but I just stood there, gave her my card. She won't call. Told my team to help her. Quiet like. She's gonna change everything. Her hands shook. Chicago, her first real gig. A gritty show in a warehouse off the Loop, 3 years before the gala. She'd been 24, broke, hauling canvases in a borrowed van. Critics raved, but she'd barely scraped by. Had he been there even then, watching from the shadows? Pierce cleared his throat, pocketing his phone. "Ms. Brooks, the car's still downstairs if you need it." Mr. Carter was clear. "Access to the study whenever you want." "I'm staying," she said, sharper than she meant. He's got to wake up. I've got questions. Pierce raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. Ruth just nodded like she'd expected it. Good, she said softly. He'd want you here. An hour later, a nurse led Lena to the ICU. The room was dim, machines beeping in a steady rhythm, tubes snaking from Jimmy's arms and chest. He looked smaller than she remembered. Pale, bruised, his dark hair matted against the pillow. His chest rose and fell, mechanical, forced. She sank into the chair beside him, the journal heavy in her lap. You dumbass, she muttered, voice breaking. Why didn't you tell me? She flipped to 2019. Bushwick show. She ran it like a queen. Bought Malik's painting, $20K, shell company. She smiled at me and I forgot my own name. I'd give her anything, but she'd hate me if she knew. 2020. Rent spiked at her gallery. Bought the building, dropped it 40%. She'll think it's luck. Can't let her lose that place. Each entry peeled back another layer. Every miracle she'd chalked up to grit or fate was him, his hands invisible but steady. She didn't hear the door creak open until a shadow fell across the bed. She looked up, startled, to see a woman, tall, blonde, sharp cheekbones, red lipstick stark against her pale skin. She wore a black coat, heels clicking as she stepped in, eyes locked on Jimmy. Lena's hackles rose. Who the hell are you? The woman's gaze flicked to her, cool and assessing. Sophia Reyes, she said, voice smooth as silk. Jimmy's friend. And you? Lena Brooks, she shot back, standing. His emergency contact. You shouldn't be here. Sophia's lips curved, a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. Emergency contact? Cute. I've known him longer than you, sweetheart. I belong here. Bullshit, Lena snapped, stepping between her and the bed. Family only. Get out. Sophia's smirk faltered, but she didn't budge. You don't know him like I do. We were together, years ago, sure, but he doesn't forget. He needs me now. He needs you to leave, Lena said, voice low, fists clenching. I don't care who you were. You're not on the list. Sophia's eyes narrowed, but she stepped back, heels clicking. This isn't over, she said, then turned and swept out, leaving a whiff of expensive perfume in her wake. Lena sank back into the chair, adrenaline buzzing. Who the fuck was that? An ex? Some socialite clinging to his name? She didn't have time to wonder. The nurse poked her head in. One visitor, she said sternly. You're it. Lena nodded, turning back to Jimmy. You've got some explaining to do, she muttered, flipping to 2023. Harlem tonight. Red dress, fierce as hell. Wired $50K so she could win that bid. Almost told her. I'm a coward. She traced the words, ink smudged like he'd written fast, desperate. Coward, huh? Maybe. But you're my coward. She stayed all night, dozing in the chair, waking every time a machine beeped louder. Ruth came in at dawn, bringing coffee and a blanket. You're stubborn, she said, handing her the cup. Runs in my blood, Lena replied, taking it. He's got to wake up, Ruth. I need to yell at him. Ruth chuckled, soft and sad. He'd deserve it. Days blurred. 3, 4, 5. Lena barely left, running black canvas from her phone, postponing shows. She read more journals, each one a gut punch. 2021. Her mom got sick. Cancer, bad. Paid the bills through a fake donor. She cried on the phone with me. Didn't know I'd fixed it. 2022. MoMA gig. Funding fell through last minute. Dropped a grant in her lap, untraceable. She hugged me at the opening. First time she touched me. I'm fucked, she cried then, quiet. tears soaking the pages. He'd been there, every crisis, every win, lifting her without a word. Why? Fear? Respect? Love so deep it scared him shitless? She didn't know, but she felt it now, heavy and real. On day 6, Victor Hayes's rumors hit her inbox. A page 6 blurb. Harlem curator Lena Brooks bankrolled by mystery billionaire? She cursed, loud enough to make a nurse glare. That bastard. She called Malik, who picked up growling. "What's this shit, Lena? You screwing some rich guy for my career?" "No," she snapped. "It's lies. Victor's stirring crap. You know me, Malik." He paused, breathing hard. "Yeah, but I'm pissed. Fix it." "I will," she said, hanging up. She didn't know how. Jimmy was still out, and she couldn't fight this alone. But she'd be damned if she let Victor win. That night, she sat by Jimmy's bed, the room dim, his hand cool in hers. "Wake up, you idiot," she whispered. "I need you to tell me why. Why all this? Why me?" She squeezed, willing him to hear her. His fingers twitched. Her breath caught, eyes snapping to his face. His eyelids fluttered, slow, then opened. Hazel, hazy, locking on her. "Lena," he croaked, voice sandpaper rough. "Jimmy," she gasped, leaning in. "Oh my God, you're—" "Why are you here?" he rasped, confusion clouding his eyes. She laughed, shaky. "I'm your emergency contact, genius. You've got some nerve." His face fell, alarm cutting through the fog. "The key, the study." "You read?" "Yeah," she said, holding his hand tighter. "I read them. 7 years, Jimmy. 7 fucking years." He closed his eyes, a tear slipping down his cheek. "I didn't want. Not like this. Not while I couldn't—" "Why?" she cut in, voice trembling. "Why keep it quiet? Why love me like that and never say it?" He swallowed, wincing as he shifted. "Your light," he whispered. "Your fight. You earned it all. Black canvas, MoMA, everything. I couldn't let anyone think it was me. You deserved better." "Better than what?" she pressed, leaning closer. "You?" "Me," he said, eyes opening, raw and unguarded. "A guy with money but no guts. I thought you'd never—" "Shut up," she said, soft but firm, pressing her forehead to his. "You've got more guts than anyone I know. Hiding it doesn't change that." He stared, breath hitching, and she felt it. The shift, the air thickening between them. "Lena," he murmured, voice breaking. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she whispered, her lips brushing his temple. "Just don't leave me again." He didn't answer, just held her gaze, and for the first time she saw him. All of him. The man who'd loved her silent, fierce, and now, finally, out loud. Lena Brooks stormed out of the ICU, her boots slamming the linoleum with every step, the echo bouncing off the sterile walls of New York Presbyterian. Jimmy Carter's hoarse whisper, "I thought you'd never," still rang in her ears, his hazel eyes raw and pleading as they'd locked on hers. She'd held his hand, felt the faint squeeze of his fingers, and for a split second everything made sense. 7 years of his silent love crashing into her like a wave. But then the weight of it hit harder. The journals, the lies, the way he'd built her world without a damn word. She'd bolted, muttering, "I need air," before the tears could spill. Outside, the October night was sharp, the rain gone but the air thick with damp chill. She leaned against the hospital's brick wall, her breath fogging in short, angry bursts. Her phone buzzed in her jacket. Malik Jones, probably still pissed about the page 6 rumor Victor Hayes had planted. Harlem curator Lena Brooks bankrolled by mystery billionaire? She ignored it, shoving her hands deeper into her pockets. Jimmy was awake, alive, but awake meant answers, and she wasn't sure she could handle them yet. Not when her whole life felt like a house of cards he'd stacked in secret. Inside, Jimmy lay propped against the hospital bed, tubes snaking from his arm, his chest aching with every shallow breath. The fog of sedation lingered, but Lena's face, fierce, hurt, beautiful, cut through it like a blade. She'd read the journals. She knew. He'd wanted to tell her 1,000 times, but not like this. Not flat on his back, broken and exposed. He pressed a hand to his forehead, wincing as the IV tugged. "Fuck," he muttered, voice gravelly. "I fucked this up." Ruth Carter slipped in, her silver hair glinting under the dim lights. She set a styrofoam cup of coffee on the tray table, her eyes soft but stern. "You're awake," she said, pulling up a chair. "Good. Now you've got some mess to clean." He groaned, shifting to face her. "She hates me, Mama. I saw it." "She's mad," Ruth corrected, sipping her own coffee. "Big difference. Girl's got a right to be after all you hid. But hate? Nah. She wouldn't have stayed 6 days if she hated you." Jimmy's throat tightened. 6 days? "Mm-hmm," Ruth said, nodding. "Barely left this room. Read your damn books cover to cover, crying half the time. She's wrestling with it, James. Give her a minute." He stared at the ceiling, the beep of the monitor a steady pulse in his skull. 6 days. Lena, stubborn, fiery Lena, camped out for him. He'd dreamed of her here, but not like this, not tearing herself apart over his cowardice. "I should have told her," he said, voice breaking. "Years ago." "Should have," Ruth agreed, blunt as ever. "But you didn't. So what now?" He didn't have an answer. Not yet. Lena paced the hospital courtyard, the cold biting her cheeks. She pulled out her phone. 3 missed calls from Malik, a text from Grace Kim. "He's awake, asking for you." She cursed under her breath, shoving it back in her pocket. Asking for her. After 7 years of silence, he had the nerve to ask now. She wanted to scream. At him, at herself, at the whole damn world. But beneath the rage, something else churned. Gratitude. Confusion. A pull she couldn't name. Her phone buzzed again. Malik. This time she answered. "What?" she snapped, pacing tighter circles. "What the hell, Lena?" His voice was loud, rough, like he'd been stewing for hours. "This page 6 shit, you screwing some rich dude for my career? For yours?" "No," she said, sharp enough to cut glass. "It's lies, Malik. Victor's stirring crap because he's a petty asshole. You know me better than that." He paused, breathing heavy through the line. "Yeah, I thought I did. But you're holed up with this Carter guy. And now this? I'm out here looking like a charity case." "You're not," she said, stopping dead. "Your work sells because it's good. You're good. This is my fight, not yours. Trust me, I'll fix it." "Better," he growled. "I'm done being collateral." He hung up, leaving her with static and a pounding headache. She leaned against a lamppost, rubbing her temples. Victor. That smug bastard had timed this perfectly. Jimmy down, her reeling, the art world watching. She needed to hit back, but how? She couldn't drag Jimmy into it. Not now, not when he could barely sit up. But doing nothing wasn't an option either. Back inside, she avoided the ICU, heading for the cafeteria instead. Coffee, black, bitter, was her lifeline as she slumped at a sticky table, the journal from 2018 open in front of her. She reread the gala entry, then flipped to 2021. Her mom got sick. Cancer, bad. Paid the bills through a fake donor. She cried on the phone with me. Didn't know I'd fixed it. Broke my heart to hear her like that. Her mom, 2 years gone now, had fought like hell, and those bills disappearing had been a miracle she'd never questioned. Until now. She slammed the book shut, drawing a glare from an orderly mopping nearby. Sorry, she muttered, but her mind raced. Every corner of her life. Black canvas, her mom, MoMA. Jimmy's fingerprints were there. Faint, but real. She wanted to hate him for it, for playing God with her world. But the truth gnawed at her. He'd never asked for a damn thing back. Not credit, not her, just her success. Her phone lit up again. An email from Victor Hayes, subject, "Let's talk." She opened it, jaw clenching as she read. "Lena, rumors are ugly, but facts are worse. I've got proof. Carter's been funding you. Bank records, shell companies. Meet me tomorrow. Chelsea Gallery, 6 p.m. We can settle this quiet, or I go loud. Your call." Attached was a blurry screenshot. Numbers, dates, enough to make her stomach drop. "Son of a bitch," she hissed, slamming the phone down. Proof? Bullshit or not, Victor had ammo, and he'd use it to torch her reputation. She couldn't let that happen. Not to her, not to Malik, not to the artists counting on her. But dragging Jimmy into this mess, fresh off a ventilator, that felt wrong too. She was still stewing when Sophia Reyes strutted in, heels clicking like gunfire on the tile. The blonde ex, Jimmy's ghost from who knows when, spotted her and smirked, sliding into the seat across the table without asking. "Well," Sophia said, crossing her legs, "you're still here, dedicated." "Get lost," Lena said, voice flat. "I'm not in the mood." "Touchy," Sophia purred, leaning forward. "Jimmy's awake, I hear. Guess you're not the only one he's got on speed dial. He called me, too." Lena's blood ran hot. "Liar. You're not on any list." "Maybe not officially," Sophia said, inspecting her nails. "But we go back. Way back. He doesn't just forget me, sweetheart. I'm here to take him home, where he belongs." Lena stood, chair scraping loud enough to turn heads. "He's not your damn dog. Back off or I'll make you." Sophia laughed, sharp and cold. "Big words. But you're out of your depth, Lena. Stick to your little gallery. I've got this." Lena's fists clenched, nails biting her palms. "Try me," she said, low and dangerous. Sophia's smirk faltered, but she stood, brushing past Lena with a huff, her perfume lingering like a taunt. Lena sank back down, shaking. Sophia, Victor, Malik. The walls were closing in, and Jimmy was at the center, whether she liked it or not. She couldn't stay here, stewing in stale coffee and rage. She grabbed her bag and headed for the exit, needing space, needing a plan. 2 hours later, she stood in the rain outside Jimmy's penthouse, the Upper East Side towering around her. She'd taken the car, screw-walking, and let herself in with the key, the housekeeper nodding her through. The study welcomed her back, warm, cluttered, the journals a silent army on the wall. She grabbed 2022, flipping to the MoMA entry. Funding fell through last minute, dropped a grant in her lap, untraceable. She hugged me at the opening, first time she touched me. "I'm fucked." She sank into the leather chair, the memory sharp, her arms around him, quick and grateful, his stiff nod hiding a storm. She'd felt it then, a spark, but buried it. Now it burned. She flipped to a later page. Saw her with some guy tonight, tall, Loud. Not me. Wanted to smash his face in. Instead, I wired $10K to her account, some bullshit donation. I'm pathetic. Lena laughed, bitter and soft. Pathetic. No. Insane, maybe. She grabbed her phone, dialing Grace Kim. "Lena," Grace answered, voice clipped. "He's asking for you again." "He can wait," Lena said, pacing. "Victor Hayes, he's got dirt. Says it's on Jimmy. Bank records. You know anything?" Grace paused. Too long. "I handle his accounts, yes. Discreetly. If Hayes has something, it's possible." "Fuck," Lena muttered. "Can you stop him?" "Not my call," Grace said. "Jimmy's awake. Talk to him." Lena hung up, staring at the journals. She couldn't hide from this. Not Victor, not Sophia, not the truth. She grabbed her coat, the rain louder now, and headed back to the hospital. No car this time. She walked, letting the cold soak her bones, her mind racing. She'd confront Jimmy, get the whole story, then deal with Victor. No more shadows. Back in the ICU, Jimmy sat up, pale but alert. Ruth gone for the night. He looked up as she stormed in, water dripping from her jacket. "Lena," he said, voice stronger. "You're soaked." "Shut up," she said, dropping her bag. "We're talking. Now." He nodded, wincing as he shifted. "Okay, what?" "Everything," she cut in, pulling the 2022 journal from her bag and slamming it on the tray table. "Victor's got proof. Bank shit. Your money in my life. Sophia's sniffing around, saying you're hers. Malik thinks I sold him out. And you," she pointed, voice rising, "you've been playing puppet master for 7 years. Why, Jimmy? Why not tell me?" He flinched, eyes dropping to the journal. "I didn't want you to hate me," he said, quiet. "Your fight, your wins, they're yours. I couldn't let anyone think I bought them. Not you." "So you lied?" she shouted, pacing. "Made me think I did it alone?" "You did," he said, louder, gripping the bed rail. "I just cleared the way. The rent, the grants. I couldn't watch you lose it all. Not when I could help." "Help?" She laughed, sharp and jagged. "You call this help? I'm a fucking joke now. Victor's got me on a leash." "No," he said, fierce. "He's got nothing. I'll bury him. Records, lawyers, whatever it takes. You're not a joke, Lena. You're everything." She stopped, breath hitching. His eyes burned into hers, raw, desperate. "Then why hide?" she whispered. 7 years, Jimmy. We could have—" "I was scared," he admitted, voice breaking. "Scared you'd say no. Scared I'd ruin you. I thought loving you quiet was enough." She stared, rain dripping from her braids to the floor. "Enough for who?" He didn't answer, just looked at her. Broken, open, hers. She stepped closer, the air thick, electric. "You're an idiot," she said, voice trembling. "A stupid, selfless idiot." "Lena." She cut him off, grabbing his face and kissing him, hard, messy, years crashing into seconds. He froze, then kissed back, hands tangling in her wet hair, the monitor beeping wild as their breaths mixed. She pulled away, panting, forehead pressed to his. "No more hiding," she said. "You hear me?" "Yeah," he rasped, eyes locked on hers. "No more." She stepped back, shaking, as the door creaked. Sophia, wide-eyed in the hall. "Well," she sneered. "Guess I'm late." "Get out," Lena said, not turning. Sophia huffed and left, heels fading fast. Lena sank into the chair, Jimmy's hand finding hers. Victor loomed, Malik fumed, Sophia schemed. But here now, it was just them. And it wasn't over. Lena Brooks stood in the dim glow of Jimmy Carter's ICU room, her breath still ragged from the kiss that had just torn through 7 years of silence. Her lips buzzed, her hands shook, and the rain-soaked denim of her jacket clung to her skin like a second layer of armor she didn't need anymore. Jimmy's hazel eyes, bruised, tired but alive, held hers, his fingers laced through hers on the hospital bed. The monitor beeped faster, a frantic little drumbeat matching the chaos in her chest. She'd kissed him, and it wasn't just anger or desperation. It was everything she'd buried, everything his journals had cracked open. "Lena," he rasped, voice rough from the tubes they'd pulled out. "You sure about this?" She laughed, sharp and shaky, wiping rain from her face. "Sure? Hell no. But I'm done running from it." She squeezed his hand, her thumb brushing the IV tape on his wrist. "You?" He grinned, faint but real, the crinkles at his eyes deepening. "Been sure since 18. Just didn't think you'd—" "Stop," she cut in, leaning closer. "No more I didn't think. We're here. Deal with it." He nodded, slow, like he was testing the weight of her words. "Okay, deal." The door creaked behind her, and she tensed, half expecting Sophia Reyes to strut back in with her smug little smirk. But it was Ruth Carter, silver hair glinting under the fluorescence, a styrofoam cup steaming in her hand. She stopped short, eyebrows lifting as she clocked their hands, the air thick between them. "Well," she said, southern drawl thick with amusement, "looks like I missed something." Lena pulled back, heat creeping up her neck. "He's awake," she said, dodging the obvious. "Figured I'd check in." "Mm-hmm," Ruth hummed, setting the coffee down. "Checking in real close, I see." She glanced at Jimmy, who ducked his head like a kid caught sneaking cookies. "You good, James?" "Yeah, Mama," he said, voice steadier now. "Better than good." Ruth's eyes softened, but she didn't push. "I'll give y'all a minute," she said, stepping out with a knowing nod. The door clicked shut, leaving them alone again, the silence heavy but not suffocating. Lena sank into the chair, her bag thudding to the floor. "She's cool," she said, nodding after Ruth. "Tough as nails." "Always has been," Jimmy said, shifting to sit up, wincing as his ribs protested. "Raised me solo after Dad split. Kept me straight." Lena smirked. "Didn't keep you from turning into a stalker." He laughed, a real laugh, rough and warm, then groaned, clutching his side. "Fair, but I'm a good stalker. Grade A references." "Shut up," she said, grinning despite herself. But the grin faded fast. Victor Hayes's email loomed in her mind, a ticking bomb she couldn't ignore. She pulled out her phone, the screen lighting her face as she reread it. "Bank records, shell companies. Meet me tomorrow, 6 p.m., or I go loud." Her jaw tightened. "Jimmy, we've got a problem." He frowned, leaning forward despite the pain. "What?" "Victor Hayes," she said, tossing the phone on the tray table. "That asshole's got dirt, or says he does. Bank stuff, your money and my life. He's threatening to blow it up unless I meet him tomorrow." Jimmy's face darkened, a storm rolling in behind his eyes. "That son of a bitch," he muttered, fists clenching the blanket. "He's bluffing. Has to be." "Doesn't matter," she said, standing to pace. "Bluff or not, he'll spin it. Page 6 already ran that crap about me being your puppet. Malik's pissed. Thinks I sold him out. If Victor goes public, it's over. Black canvas, my name, everything." "No," Jimmy said, sharp enough to stop her mid-step. "Not over. I'll fix it." She spun on him, hands on her hips. "How? You can barely sit up. And don't you dare say lawyers. This isn't a boardroom deal, it's my fight. Our fight, he corrected, voice low but firm. He's coming for me too. Let me help, Lena. Please. She stared, torn. She'd built her world solo, clawed through every door slammed in her face, and letting him in felt like handing over the keys. But his eyes, pleading, fierce, chipped at her walls. Fine, she said finally, crossing her arms. But we do it my way. No shadows this time. Deal, he said, a ghost of a smile breaking through. What's the play? She chewed her lip, thinking fast. I meet him, tomorrow, Chelsea. Hear him out, see what he's got. You get Grace on the phone, find out what's real, what's fake. We hit back hard, proof he's lying, or at least enough to shut him up. Jimmy nodded, already reaching for his phone with a shaky hand. Grace'll dig. She's a bloodhound. What about Malik? He's my mess, she said, pacing again. I'll call him, smooth it over. He's hot-headed, but he trusts me, mostly. And Sophia? Jimmy asked, voice tightening. Lena snorted. She's noise. I'll handle her if she shows her face again. He grinned, weaker now, but real. You're a force, you know that? Damn right, she said, but her stomach twisted. Force or not, this was a tightrope, and one slip could burn everything down. The next day, Lena stood outside Victor's Chelsea gallery, the sleek white building glaring in the dusk. Her stomach churned, but she squared her shoulders, braids swinging as she pushed through the glass doors. Inside, the place was all minimalist bullshit. White walls, overpriced abstracts, a vibe that screamed money over soul. Victor waited by a bar cart in the back, pouring himself a scotch, his tailored blazer screaming trust fund prick. He looked up, smirking like he'd already won. Lena Brooks, he drawled. Right on time. Cut the crap, she said, stopping a few feet away. What do you want? He swirled his glass, ice clinking. Straight to it, huh? Fine. I've got records. Carter Investments funneling cash to your little Harlem hole. Shell companies, grants, rent deals. Enough to prove you're his pet project. Prove it, she said, voice steady despite the pulse hammering in her throat. He pulled a folder from a drawer, tossing it on the counter. Take a look. Dates, amounts, matches your miracles perfectly. Page 6 was just a teaser. I go public, you're done. She flipped it open. Pages of numbers, bank transfers, names she didn't recognize. Her chest tightened. It looked real enough to hurt. This is bullshit, she said, slamming it shut. You're fishing. Am I? He stepped closer, too close, his cologne sharp and cloying. Meet me halfway, Lena. Pull black canvas out of MoMA's next show. Let me take it. I bury this, and your secret stays safe. She laughed, cold and loud. You think I'd sell out for you? You're dumber than you look. His smirk faded, eyes narrowing. Last chance. I hit send, and every critic in this city knows you're a fraud. Do it, she said, stepping into his space, voice a blade. I'll bury you first. He glared, then shrugged, pulling out his phone. Your funeral. He tapped the screen, and her heart sank, until hers buzzed in her pocket. She yanked it out. Grace Kim. Records are fake. Forgeries. Jimmy's clean. Sending proof now. Lena grinned, slow and dangerous. Check your email, Victor. He frowned, swiping at his phone. His face paled as he read. Screenshots, timestamps, a lawyer's letter dismantling his evidence line by line. What the? Game over, she said, turning for the door. Next time, pick a fight you can win. She walked out, adrenaline pumping, the city lights blurring as she hit the street. Her phone rang. Jimmy. "You okay?" he asked, voice tight. "Yeah," she said, grinning. "Victor's toast. Grace came through." "Told you," he said, relief flooding his tone. "Malik?" "Next," she said, dialing as she walked. Malik picked up, still growling. "Lena, this better be good." "It is," she said. "Victor's a liar. Proof's coming your way. You're clean. I'm clean. We good?" He paused, then sighed. "Yeah. Sorry I flipped." "Buy me a beer. We're square," she said. And he laughed, tension breaking. She hung up, the night alive around her, horns blaring, subway rumbling below. Victor was down, Malik was back, but Sophia lingered, a loose thread. She'd deal with that later. For now, she headed to the hospital, needing Jimmy's face, his voice, the anchor he'd always been. 6 months later, spring 2024, Lena stood in black canvas, the gallery buzzing with a new show, Malik's neon chaos on every wall. She wore a red dress, gold hoops swinging, her laugh echoing as she worked the room. Jimmy leaned against a pillar, cane in hand, his limp faint but permanent. He'd stepped back from Carter Investments, letting Grace run the show, and spent his days here. Beside her, not behind. The journal sat framed on a shelf, his lovesick scribbles now art, a story they owned together. Victor had slunk off, his gallery hemorrhaging clients after Lena leaked his forged proof to the press. Sophia tried one last play, showing up at Jimmy's penthouse with a sob story. But Lena shut her down, door slammed in her face. "She's gone," Jimmy had said, pulling Lena close. "Just us now." Now, at the show, he caught her eye across the crowd, raising a beer in a quiet toast. She grinned back, weaving through to him. "You good?" she asked, slipping an arm around his waist. "Better," he said, kissing her temple. "You?" "Best," she said, leaning into him. They'd fought, Victor, Sophia, the world, and won. No more shadows, no more silence. Just them, loud and real. She turned to the room, raising her voice. "Hey, y'all. This one's for the quiet ones who love hard. Keep your eyes open. They're closer than you think. Hey, if Lena and Jimmy's ride hit you deep, don't miss out. Subscribe and drop a comment. Who's been your silent rock? Tell me, I'm listening."